So we're now going to move on. We've got one more short presentation before lunchtime, so don't worry, we're only about 15 minutes from lunch. And James is going to chat to you now about the creatures of the outdoor environment.
Thank you very much, Corey. First of all, thanks for the invitation to speak. I've been really inspired sitting here listening to Alan talking about FAST and Nicola before about epilepsy. Absolutely a tremendous programme, and I'm really pleased to see the professional development of first aid as the most basic thing in healthcare. I'm giving this presentation on behalf of a wider group, and the name you see at the top of the slide, Dominic Mellor, Professor Dominic Mellor, is one of my colleagues. He works for the University of Glasgow, and he's a public health vet, and he works for part-time for this organisation at the top called Health Protection Scotland, which is the NHS's organisation at the top, which tries to deal with public health. My day job is a general practitioner. I'm a GP. I've been a GP in Fort William for just about, this is my 40th year in general practice in Fort William. I've been involved in the periphery of first aid training during that time. When I went to Fort William, it was all about diving and hyperbaric medicine and the underwater training centre for the North Sea, so I was involved in paramedic training for the North Sea. I'm involved for many years as a medical officer for the Lochaber Mountain Rescue Team, so I was involved in first aid on the hill. I then got involved in Basic Scotland, which is all about pre-hospital care for GPs. And another bit of my day job is that I'm involved in medical education standards for undergraduate and postgraduate education. I was interested to hear all your discussions about standards, etc. So that's my general background. What I'm going to talk to you about this morning is this business about outdoor bugs and germs initiative. Really, essentially, this is a public health type policy where we're trying to give information to the general public about outdoor bugs and germs. And really, strategically, we see the crucial role of first aid training organisations in understanding this sort of stuff as part of the implementation. So that's why I was so pleased to get this invitation from Corey to speak. What I want to do is kind of give you an idea about who are the key groups that need to understand this sort of stuff. Crucially, I think, try and help you contextualise some of the risks for outdoor activity, because we've got to balance risk against the positive benefits of being out in the outdoors. I can only give you a brief outline today on some of the topics, and I'm going to give you some sources of information where I hope you're going to be able to get more detail. And this afternoon, I'm going on to my favourite topic, which is ticks and Lyme. The key to this policy is the where do you get safe information. Now, we're all awash with information as we've learned from the internet and rubbish on the internet. The National Health Service in Scotland is trying very hard to have one single portal for safe information. So if you want to find out about strokes, or you want to find out about epilepsy, or whatever topic, the idea is that there's going to be one particular portal where everything points to. And this NHS Inform is Scotland's version of that. There's a slightly different one in England. And so NHS 24 and all the various sort of websites across Scotland point to this website. It's not brilliant, but it's starting a process. And on this, if you search NHS for NHS Inform, you'll find this whole policy document about outdoor bugs and germs, and also a little bit about Lyme disease. Now, broadly speaking, in outdoor bugs and germs, what they are, the ones I'm just going to go on to tell you about, are low prevalence. In other words, they don't occur very often, but they are very high impact illnesses on the individuals who are affected. And the key to it is really that some very simple simple prevention actions would generally prevent them. And mostly, they're about animal transmission. I was interested to see that there was somebody who was into veterinary health in the audience here. And these are so-called zoonotic illnesses. So these are illnesses that are transmitted from animals to humans. And the key one, and the main one I want to emphasize today, is this one called VTEC, or E. coli 0157, which is a strange gastrointestinal bacteria which seems to produce a toxin. And that toxin causes quite really bad effects on people. It produces what's called hemolytic, I'm sorry for the jargon, hemolytic uremic syndrome. So basically what happens is the body starts bleeding, the toxin causes the body to start bleeding everywhere, produces a symptom of diarrhoea and vomiting, and eventually goes on to kidney failure. And what seems to have happened in the outbreaks that we've had, that the main group of people that are affected are mainly children and older adults. That's probably because children are developing their immunity and older adults where their immunity is getting less as they get older. But there have been a number of outbreaks across the UK and certainly in Scotland and a number of different policy reviews. The beginning of this is probably, I don't know if many of you were around in 1996 and the big outbreak of E. coli due to a Wishaw butcher, I don't know if you remember that. And that was all about getting this bacteria got into the food chain and was spread around by the way that the butcher shop worked, and there was a big outbreak in Wishaw where there were some very seriously ill children and adults. And the original idea about this was that, well, this was all about food, and if we got food safety right, then the problem would go away. Well, certainly food safety has certainly in the kitchen, and all that, I'm pleased to see the environmental health people out there, whole stuff about food preparation and how you store food in the kitchen, in the fridge, and food preparation, etc. That certainly seems to have made a difference to that. But we're rather left with the problem that animals are still excreting this E. coli 157, and somehow or other that's getting in contact with people, and then they're getting this problem. And the difficulty on the farming side is that there isn't any direct intervention you can make on the farming side. There's no vaccine, there's no introduction you can do into the feedstuffs, there's no practice in farming, if you like, that can get rid of this harmful bacteria. So this has led to a number of reports by government, inevitably, and an action plan on this E. coli 1571, which you see here. And on this glossy brochure from government, you see the key things. It's all about farm animals excreting this bacteria in their feces, petting farms where children are coming in contact with animals. Does the feces and the bacteria get into the fields and then onto the salads? What about, is it getting into the water that you drink, and what about private water supplies? Now, as I said, what we have to do is try and contextualise this risk. This slide comes from Dominic Mellor about the number of leisure days spent in the UK countryside, and he managed on a sort of back of an envelope type calculations to do some figures where we spend a lot of leisure time in the countryside. So to try and contextualise the risk for you, 551 million visits to the countryside during 1998. During the same time, how many episodes of this E. coli infection were there in 1998? So this is rather old information, but still relevant, about 1,000. So in terms of the likelihood, it's not terribly common, as I say, but it's all about animal feces entering the drinking water or children petting animals, and therefore the transfer occurring that way. So this bad bacteria, this E. coli 157, as I say, it's all about where does the water go. But there are some other ones to mention in this whole outdoor bugs and germs thing. There's another one called Cryptosporidium. That's a bacteria that seems to be particularly harmful to people who are slightly immune suppressed. There's also another one which some of you may already be aware about because it's been around for quite a time, called Weil's disease. Are you aware of Weil's disease? Yeah, okay. So Weil's disease is all about rats being the vector. They harbour this bacteria. The rat urine then gets into water supplies, so people who are canoeists or sewage workers, etc., are they at-risk groups of getting that. So in terms of your occupational health, your training, first aid training, again, to contextualise the risks, it is a pretty catastrophic thing, and people have got to, mainly by awareness, know about it, but there's generally only about 50 cases per year. There's another similar one, not related to rats, but related to cattle, called Hydra virus, that's really the same thing. But essentially, in first aid terms, you need to promote the idea that anybody peeing blood or pooing blood as a first aid question, something needs to be done. Now, in terms of first aid information and where to get the detailed information about these particular zoonoses like Weil's disease, like E. coli 1571, etc., 157, the best source of information is the Health and Safety Executive website, which hopefully you're all aware about. And what you should do is you can do drop-downs on the Health and Safety Executive website for industry and topics. If you type in their search bar at the top with zoonosis, then you'll get the detailed information about these topics. And this obviously comes under the things like controlled substance hazards to health regulations, where you have to do preventative stuff to stop transmission in the workplace of any substance that's hazardous to health. So obviously rat urine or ticks or whatever are all things that are hazardous to health. And the other legislation that kind of goes along with that is obviously, so I can, doesn't matter. Anyway, the other bits of information are the Health and Safety at Work Act and RIDDOR. But the other thing to try and give you is really to kind of some sort of sense about who is this important to. Now, the risk groups to these outdoor bugs and infection tend to be around immunity and occupation. Now, in terms of immunity, people who are pregnant, women who are pregnant, what happens in the normal physiological state of pregnancy is because the woman is growing a baby inside their womb, the body naturally suppresses the immune response. So therefore, pregnant women are particularly prone to nasty flu viruses and all sorts of things. And pregnant women in particular, again, I don't know whether this is relevant to your first aid training if you're speaking to pregnant women, but the key things that pregnant women have to know about are toxoplasmosis, because it's in cat feces, it's a bacteria in cat feces, but also, importantly, it's also in lambing. So again, in your occupational health first aid, if people are working in the agricultural industry and shepherdesses working with lambs, they certainly shouldn't work during the lambing season when they're pregnant or at risk of being pregnant. Another one which is related to lambing is one called Q fever, another bacteria. And the other one generally related to food is Listeria, which is a bacteria which can contaminate sort of salads and soft cheeses and patties and stuff like that. So this is just general information which hopefully is contained in sort of pregnancy packs that people get when they're pregnant. But again, it's something that we need to generally have general awareness about these particular things. The other thing about immunity is how immunity changes with age. So obviously if you're a baby, you're developing your immunity and your immune system is learning to deal with the environment around about you. But as you get older, your immunity gets less good, and therefore potentially your relationship with bacteria in the environment is going to change as you get older. There are a number of illnesses, obviously, where immunity becomes affected, and the main one that you're probably aware about is obviously HIV/AIDS, where the HIV virus impairs the ability of the body to fight off infections, and that's why it's such a problem. But also, there are many illnesses today, many chronic illnesses, where in medicine what we do is that we alter the immunity to try and help the disease. So diseases such as rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, Crohn's disease, there's a big long list of illnesses which are partially driven by the body's response to whatever it is, if it's a bacteria or whatever, or the body reacting against itself. And so we now use very powerful drugs to control these illnesses, or chemotherapy and cancer. So we do a lot of immune modulation in medicine these days, and when people are getting chemotherapy or they're on these drugs for arthritis, etc., they're going to be more prone to infections, and therefore we need to take account of that. And obviously the occupational groups are really important. So again, if you're doing your occupational first aid, farmers, vets, abattoir workers, and outdoor instructors, the whole outdoor instruction industry, all need to know about the outdoor bugs and germs and the tick stuff that I'll be talking about this afternoon. Another bit that's not specifically related to outdoor bugs and germs, just generally as first aiders, I thought this was maybe an important thing to tell you about. I'm not sure whether many of you are aware of it, but diarrhoea and vomiting for any cause, in other words, even things like norovirus. So if you're talking to care workers who are involved in norovirus, etc., this is something that they should be aware about. So care workers who are working in old people's homes or norovirus outbreaks in general, very highly contagious. The difficulty is that when people have got diarrhoea and vomiting from any cause, And if they have other illnesses, if they're on if they have diabetes, they're on diabetic tablets, if they're taking blood pressure tablets, if they're on fluid tablets of any sort, if they're on arthritis type tablets, if they continue taking these tablets when they've got diarrhea and vomiting, you can get a problem that can then cause what's called acute kidney injury, where you compromise kidney function. So within the NHS, we've got quite a few policies. We try and tell people who are on these tablets that if they do have a diarrhea and vomiting illness from any cause, they have to remember the so-called sick day rules. If you Google sick day rules, you should hopefully get the Scottish Patient Safety Programme information about what it is, and essentially just encourage people to phone NHS 24 or contact their general practitioner just to get advice about whether to stop the tablets or not stop the tablets. Now, I did bring, there are some little cards which I brought with me to the conference, which might have been at the front desk. But again, this sick day rules is something that hopefully as first aiders you should be aware about and telling people about. Now, coming down to the practicalities of first aid, and returning to the outdoor bugs and germs theme, the main thing that you've got to think in first aid training is, well, cows, sheep, deer and rats, these are all animals that can excrete these nasty bacteria. Well, where does their fecal water go to? And is there any possibility of us either swimming in it or drinking it? And what should you do? Well, essentially, you should boil drinking water, particularly when you're camping. And if there's a private water supply, there's certainly been outbreaks, certainly from the Highlands, where there have been off-grid water supplies, animals in fields, big flood of rain, animal feces then goes into the private water supply, some passing tourist, usually from Holland or somewhere, then drinks the private water supply, and Bob's your uncle, you've got a nasty episode of E. coli 157. So if you are ever actually in somewhere that's got a private water supply, then either boil the water or take bottled water or something. Food preparation and storage is very important. Obviously, cooking food properly and cooking the hamburgers on the barbecue outdoors is important. If you don't cook the food properly, then you're going to make yourself more likely to get Campylobacter, which is another bacterial infection which causes bloody diarrhea, and it's one of the most common, or it's probably the most common cause of nasty diarrhea illness in young people. The other first aid thing is how you wash your hands. What about hand gels? Difficult topic to advise people on. What we try and encourage people to do is always to use soap and water. That is the best method of getting rid of any of these bacteria off your hands, either by touching food or by after being to the toilet, etc. The difficulty with the hand gels is that Cryptosporidium in particular doesn't seem to be particularly frightened by the hand gels. Hand gels are obviously better than nothing, but the best practice is really soap and water. Another bit of common sense advice is washing wounds. So if you fall in a field full of cowpats and graze your knee and it just needs a wee plaster sort of thing, it's very important to clean and wash that wound because that's obviously going to be a portal of entry from a dirty wound. And then obviously in the camping situation or in the canoeing situation or anything like that where you're actually in water that might contain bacteria, waterproof plasters are probably going to be better than non-waterproof plasters. However, I think what we have to do is to maintain a bit of common sense about all this sort of stuff, and just to try and benchmark you this common sense at a personal level. Is what I'm saying meaning that an end to wild swimming in Highland rivers? Well, my answer to that is emphatically no. I'm very keen on wild swimming, and I still do a lot of it. It's great for your well-being, and we definitely need to still continue doing it. So I don't think there's any risk about jumping into a Highland river up Glenetted or something like that, or the River Nevis or something, and going for your wee summer dip. Does this mean washing hands before food preparation when camping and boiling water? Absolutely. We need to be mentioning that and trying to encourage people to do this. Does this mean you should stop drinking? You're on your high hill walks and you're climbing your Munros. Does this mean you should not drink out of the Red Burn halfway up the Ben Nevis path? Absolutely not. I still do. Look at the countryside around you. Are there cattle around? Okay, there are E. coli in some deer. There might be a dead sheep further up the stream, or there might be a dead deer further up the stream. But common sense prevails. There's probably far more well-being to be gained by drinking out of your high mountain stream than worrying about E. coli. So, coming back to this website, which hopefully you can be recommending your course participants to go and look at. I'll be talking about the Lyme disease stuff this afternoon. I'm absolutely clear, knowing all this sort of stuff, we were talking earlier on about mental health and mental health well-being, etc. I'm absolutely clear there is far more to be gained by encouraging people to go out and enjoy the great outdoors and go camping, go swimming in rivers, go canoeing, all that sort of stuff. Far more to be gained than the risks of either the outdoor bugs and germ stuff that I've talked about or the Lyme disease stuff that I'm talking about this afternoon. It's all about common sense, because essentially this is all manageable, preventable health risks that we can all deal with knowledge and first aid training and skills. So we're not trying to put people off, it's just safe use of the countryside and common sense. So thank you.